Yes.
Coming up next, Ballard and Ballard discuss the ambient world moment.
Hello and welcome to Ballard and Ballard. I'm Mr. Ballard, your host, and this is my guest, Dr. Ballard. Welcome back, Doctor.
Thank you, Mr. B.
I'd like first off to thank you, Doctor, for sharing your time and ideas with us, and, well, for sharing your fatal enthusiasm for the 20th century with us here, and for joining me in tonight's telecast.
Oh, no, no. No, no, come on. The pleasure is distinctly mine, Mr. Ballard, and mine distinctly.
The network has been very gracious to us, as have our viewers, and, well, I don't want to sound ungrateful, but it just seems surprising to me that we've enjoyed such acceptance despite, well, you know, despite the fact that the two of us have sort of been stillborn into an environment in which, well, let's just say the airwaves are already choked with shows just like this one.
Well, Mr. B, I don't think what you're talking about, it seems to me, is media saturation, I think, and it seems as if there's virtually no limit to what the market will bear.
The market?
The market, the audience, the public at large, those of us who continue beyond saturation levels, absorbing more and more, endless desires, exfoliating artificialities, psycho-spiritual prostheses, tartar control formulas, and so forth. Basically the runoff of an indiscriminate, massified, slow, industrial, global monoculture.
Was this condition taken into consideration by the architects of the so-called theory of everything?
I think the explanation for these forces lies just outside of the framework of that theory. But basically, like I said, the runoff of an indiscriminate, slow, massified, terminal, global...
Your contemporaries have, as we all know, pointed to what is popularly considered a sort of cataract point.
That's McKenna's term for it.
Right, right. And that it is at this cataract point where a shifting or a disintegrating is taking place, and that this shift is eroding in fundamental ways the very foundations of what is commonly called social reality. And you've acknowledged this in your book, Survival on My Mind, in the chapter called Exit Music, I believe. The notion being that the soul comes to us in various forms, and that these, all taken together, that these all serve as a sort of, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that these all serve as a sort of pre-recorded soundtrack to the film that is our individual lives. A film that can be watched only once and not rewound. So my question right off here is...
here we go.
My question right off is, how do we, while listening to this private soundtrack and keeping beat with it if we can, or, you know, how do we manage to get from scene to scene along the way while we are continually upstaged, it seems to me, while our backs are effectively broken by the various silences that all seem to equal death in our century?
That's a good question. Well, it may turn out to be that it is the very concept of self that is the question and the problem here, not the arbitrary forms that govern how these dissemblable subparts act and react with each other within a given zone. Today, our increasing and nearly exclusive emphasis on the machine-made, on the mass-produced, and on speedy printouts and quickly made and easily disposed of versions, especially digitally formattable and retrievable ones, these shifts tempt us, they goad or even dare us, I think, into foregoing our humanity in favor of something more expedient, you know, just something infinitely dense, something white-hot, something just quicker.
Something dense, something post-human?
Precisely. But the danger here clearly is that these options, this cult of convenience, that this lifestyle threatens to, in the long run, threatens to do away with wonderment altogether.
But doesn't this nostalgia for invisibilities, for wonderment, you know, the sight of birds bathing in a puddle, for example, I mean, this sort of thing gets lost, it seems to me, replaced by the commodification of darn near everything. I mean, is this an example of bad infinity? Is it proof of an extinction nearly complete? Again, with regards to the so-called social reality, it's not even commonplace at all, it seems to me, and we allow this extinction to play out. We even hurry it along.
I don't know that I follow you.
For example, your films have dealt with what you call the division of psychic labors and the Jungian ideal and the rent in the air and, well, by this I take it you're referring to the ozone rent. And well, for example, Andre Breton said that the world would end not with a good book, but with a beautiful advertisement for heaven or for hell.
Andre Breton said that? Yes. Really? Are you sure it was Andre Breton?
The world will end not with a good book, but with a beautiful advertisement for heaven or for hell.
What are we really saying, though? I mean, I can't experience your experience. You can't experience my experience. We are both invisible men. All men are invisible to one another. Experience, what is it but man's invisibility to man?
A man without a country talking to another man without another country.
Only experience is evident. Experience is the only evidence. Psychology, then, is the science about science. I can't avoid trying to understand your experience, sorry, because although I do not experience your experience, which is invisible to me, I experience you as experiencing. I don't experience your experience, I experience you as experiencing. I experience myself as experienced by you, and I experience you as experiencing yourself as experienced by me, and so forth. It's like that.
You sound like a busy man.
You should see my resume. But what I'm trying to get at, rather elliptically, I grant you, is based on inferences I make from my experience of you experiencing me. You know, you experiencing me, experiencing you, experiencing me, and so forth.
But it's funny, are you noticing how each of us, by means of pronunciation, intonation, lexical choice of brand names and so forth, how we each seek or attempt, if you will, to send out a message to the other, banking on a minimum of interference from the other, and with a keen eye really on the very otherness that is constituted by pre-existing meanings, the otherness of intentions even, that's present in the other?
That's weird. That's kind of neat.
I mean, I'm not a burning bush, although I play one on television.
Coming up next, Ballard and Ballard discuss the backbone of America. Pay attention, America. This is advertising. Paid for by the Ad Council.
Right. So your contention then, what you're saying and saying to me and saying to them, and saying with words, but not just with words, I guess. Let me see if I'm getting this. You feel that in idiosyncratically specific, yet in not altogether dissimilar ways, that you and I, that we are both here, yes, At these particular time and space coordinates, that whole Burroughs thing, sure. Okay, hold on a minute. If I'm reading you right, you're saying to me and to them that yes, we are here, and yes, we are Ballard and Ballard, and that yes, these are chairs and a clipboard, and yes, this is a flimsy cable television show buried deep in the cable 20s. Yes, but more than that, communication, what passes between us, in and of itself, that communication is.
I'm sorry.
No. Wow. Geez. So this is this. I am here now. This is this.
It's like this, Dr. Ballard. Implicit in all of this is the notion that all transcription systems, even the synthetic simulation of a human speaking voice, or even the more infrequent live utterance,
Soft machines.
right, that these are inadequate to the multiplicity of meanings that we seek to convey.
Right. Right.
And so for us, like for anyone else anywhere, Memphis, Osaka, Vancouver, wherever, whenever, it's a grab bag, bottom line. I mean, my voice gives the illusion of unity to what I say, but in actuality, I'm constantly expressing a whole plenitude, a whole plethora of meanings, totally. A range of meanings, yes. And some intended, but others too, of which I am as unaware as you.
There is in all of this an obsession with voice, isn't there? With speech, with language, with utterance. What I'm wondering is, could I have some of your water there? I noticed that you have ice. Well, I do not. If I could just, that would be great.
Now, Doctor, our viewers, I know, demand stricter methods of testing the outsider artist against Dubuffet's art brute. I hear it all the time.
Letters and so forth?
Sure, letters, so forth.
I'll bet they do. Yes. Well, I guess they probably would. Well, the point we've reached now, it seems to me, is not one so much of formal originality or some such, but rather one of response to the ambient world moment. Just look at the Pepsi syringe hoax. The old woman and her husband who initiated a national proactive scare. Right there, beautiful. Leaves the Dubuffet camp standing there, sitting there, slack-jawed, arms akimbo. These people, and others like them, responded with novelty, within a stylistic continuum, to the ambient world moment. You see what I'm saying? This is what I'm talking about. This is what I mean by the Jungian ideal. Okay. The mimetic virus material is encapsulated remotely, perhaps mechanically, without human initiation even, in unmarked cans of secret Pepsi. Boom! Fear reaches toxic levels. It penetrates, it thrives, it positively blooms in the collective unconscious, free to reemerge wherever it can. It's funny, I tell my students, dreams have always nourished not only the dreamer, but the dream material itself as well. Nightmares, conspiracy theories, fantasies, dreams featuring pieces of Jim Henson or Jim Henson's remains, idyllic reveries like your birds in the puddle, for example. All of these things, it's the same thing, Ambient world moment. Ambient world moment.
Lethal, instant, meta-Pepsi.
In this case, it found openings across what? 4 time zones? I mean, a saturation point had clearly been reached.
In 1995, while still living in Kansas City, you published your Manifesto of Toxism to inaugurate the exhibition of works by the newly formed Toxis Group in Berlin. But your manifesto was never officially recognized by the group itself. I'd like to ask you, Doctor, first off,
Mr. Ballard, for 2 solid years now, we have been poking around in the dark, looking for even the barest hint of a clue as to the location or the whereabouts of this one particular collectively transpersonal intergalactic Lindbergh baby, this random access questing beast. I'll tell you now, the meat of which will be found to contain one of the most lethal neurotoxins you will ever want to assimilate, sir. And frankly, I'm more than a little worried about it. I mean, you know, the old song says, what, all you need is love. I mean, did you know that was the first ever live global satellite feed?
Well, remember that the first ever broadcast television image was of an American dollar sign. I mean, there's your bottom line.
Yeah, neither did I. But I'll tell you, now, in spite of our investigations, which are astounding, I grant you, in and of themselves, in spite of these, I am fresh out of excuses. It's 11th hour. Condition red, as far as I'm concerned. I was just talking about this very problem just last week to Takayuki and his team over there, and Jesus H. Christ in a sidecar. We were getting pretty worried about it.
But why bother? I mean...
How do you mean?
Do you mean to say that a dyspeptic, paralyzed inertia and that toxic meat are two such responses to this ambient world moment?
Again?
Do you mean to say that a dyspeptic, paralyzed inertia and the toxic meat...
Yeah, hear me out. It's not just that. The real kick in the pants, I think, is that none of it can be redirected or helped or challenged in any way. There's even less than no chance at all if we proceed along lines laid down according to dogma. There's even less than no chance at all if we go that way. No way. The heroic self, or a coalition of such selves, collapses completely into caricature, into the very expression, I think, of the persevering, industrious, intoxicated, lyrical, rationalist ego that's gotten us into this mess in the first place to begin with. I mean, to this end, and I know this has been said before, but to this end, I think dogma has served us ill.
So, Person Man attends the garbage party less reluctantly than he thinks.
Now you get back to what I was talking about earlier. The backbone of America, then break it. Now follow this through with me. Now, Jung supposed, in his white suit, right, surrounded by his pupils and his students and his analysand mistresses, right, he supposed that there were, or are rather, no new archetypes. Fine. Then, much later,
Joseph Campbell
comes along and suggests to Bill Moyers that the image alone, a photographic image no less, of the whole of planet Earth, floating there, hovering there in the void, that this constitutes a new archetype. Oh, okay. So then what? The collective mind is required to leap collectively to that high ground? I mean, I don't know about you, Mr. Ballard, but I don't even know how a mood ring works. Then Joseph Campbell dies, you see, shrouded in mystery, shrouded in Atlantean mystery, and clutching a scroll in his hand. And do you know what was written on that scroll, Mr. Ballard?
No, I don't.
The words, 7 more archetypes. Number 1, the mass-produced object. Number 2, the waste receptacle. Number 3, the advertisement. Number 4, the automobile. Number 5, the remote control. Number 6,
The space alien.
the space alien. And number 7, Jane Mansfield's head.
Jane Mansfield's head.
That's right.
I understand you have the scroll. Did you happen to bring it with you tonight?
No, I don't actually have it with me. I saw it once, though, back east. I do have a clip that I think might shed some light on what we're talking about here that I talked about earlier. If we could just get Pete to run that clip,
No, I don't
guess
think
we could
that,
just go to that now.
Okay, we're going to take a break right here, and We'll be back right after this word from our affiliates.
Yes.
Coming up next, Dr. Victor Ballard on the popularity of why don't you just give me rat poison?
What's to eat? What's to drink?
Good food galore.
Quick as a wink.
Beat Kid Gum! A merciful God in every stick!
Simple Click does it all.
The ASAP Group. Thinking globally, acting globally.
So you don't have to. Coming up next, Dr. Victor Ballard on the likelihood of world order.
Pay attention, America. This is advertising. Paid for by the Ad Council.
Welcome back. During the break, Dr. Ballard and I were talking about the likelihood of world order. Now I'm getting shiny. Tell me, Doctor, when you worked with the ASAP group in the mid-90s, there were rumors to the effect that you and ASAP, and I know a lot of people won't remember this, and a lot of our viewers won't remember this, but you were all rumored to have been purportedly working with members of AdFed, along with half of Madison Avenue, toward devising a global campaign for the dissolution of the nation-states in favor of benevolent cooperative incorporation of all peoples and industries by the year 2000. Now, the FCC stepped in at the very outset, and the project was thought to have been squelched altogether. I'd like to ask you what really happened there.
Yeah, well, first of all, AdFed was headed up at that time by a very powerful woman who was a key player, who held key positions on the board of directors at Time Warner, Hasbro, and so forth. This woman was plugged into the powerful executive level cabals that own and operate AT&T. In any case, at this point, I believe she's with Sony. I'll put it that way. She really gets around. In any case, I remember it was at this time that she was just killing project proposal after project proposal. It was just ludicrous, you know, just ludicrous. She seemed personally committed to making sure that not one of our plans saw the light of day, even got off the ground. We were just dead in the water, just dead. And I remember it reached a point, I just got fed up, and I went up to her after a particularly excruciating session of just ritual deliberation. It was just pure theater. And I remember I went up to her, and I just looked her in the eye, tall woman, and I looked her in the eye then and there in the halls of what was at that time the most powerful telecommunications company in the world. And I said to her,
Coming up next, Rod Ballard revisits the summer of fear.
Pay attention, America. This is advertising. Paid for by the Ad Council.
Coming up next, Bellevue and Bellevue on Ballard and Ballard.
Jung recalls his very first vivid dream is that of looking up, absolutely dumbstruck, as a gigantic, God-sized feces come crashing through the stained glass ceiling of a cathedral.
Man, it's bleak.
Gary Busey was on our show last week, and he was saying that all of his creative output had managed only to, how did he put it? To merely creatively express his own self-annihilating energies.
He's still alive, though, isn't he?
Well, yeah, I think so.
He was really great in Cannery Row.
Didn't see it. During the Summer of Fear you mentioned earlier, the media itself dangled imaginary syringes and needles before the public eye with ominous narration to match. There was like a self-perpetuating wave of horror and boredom that simply crackled in the air. I mean, Doom was a huge hit. It just skated silently in on top of an already flat economy like Jesus Christ Superstar. But I mean, this wasn't fun in games, though. I mean, in real life, people sat paralyzed in fear, you know? I mean, fear that they weren't as real as those smiling, swaggering models, you know, stumbling through those jittery Levi's 501 commercials.
Can you imagine?
But also, there was the fear that something real,
Like a syringe, for example.
or poison meat, or armed revolution, but that these might at any time have punctured the sleep capsule. So you had this state of affairs where everyone, not just marginal types, but where the whole herd lived in fear that they were neither real in nature nor valid in culture at all. And simultaneously, they all quaked and shivered like cold, disembodied, clammy spinal cords or something. You know, fear that something might touch them, something lethal, something at least disruptive, you know. And this continues, this state of paralysis, this fear.
Yeah, it's like that business about everything that they said was good for us turning out not to be. I mean, milk, red meat, the free market system, college. Coke doesn't add life, it subtracts.
Exactly, exactly. Hey, listen, would you like a piece of gum?
Hey, yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. Thanks.
Sure. You know, frankly, I've given embarrassing amounts of consideration to all this, you know. I mean, I'm just like you. I've seen the syringes, and I've tasted my share of secret Pepsi. And let me tell you something. The threshold at the end of history is no place for the so-called pause that refreshes. But even there, perched on the olive branches of a fresh new eternity, the man is still coming down on us, you know? I mean, or he does on me at least.
I'm sorry, I don't...
Well, it's like this morning, you know? I mean, I got up, I rise, I shine, it's Monday, you know?
Okay.
And I'm feeling great, feeling incredible. I think to myself, I cannot be contained. I go out, and first thing I do is I pledge a thorough, silent allegiance.
To what?
Well, let's just say I'm feeling really good. Better than usual anyways.
All right.
First thing I do is I go out, jump in the car, put the top down. Within minutes, I'm on the interstate, you know. Driving, drinking, eating, talking on the cellular with my publicist or whatever, steering with my knees, waving at a teenage babysitter, paralegal or something or whatever. And no one knows me, and I don't know anyone. And the sun remains unadvertised, sky blue sky.
Right.
And then I look over, right, in the passenger seat of my sports sedan there, and there it is. There's this, how do I want to put this? It's a three-dimensional, 7-foot-tall textbook illustration of a human skeleton. I mean, whose idea was this? And from every joint, 206 bones, right? From every joint and seam and eye socket and open jaw, it's bursting all over with flowers, with the most beautiful little saffron and orange flowers, each about the size of a golf ball or whatever. And I mean, I think to myself, who is this skeleton person? I mean, is it you? I mean, probably not, but maybe it's Glenn Miller or Walt Disney, for Christ's sakes. Who knows? I mean, Brian Piccolo, Patient Zero, Jessica Savage, maybe, freaking Hoffa, I don't know. I mean, Sammy Davis Jr. had a third eye, Dr. Ballard. Why didn't he use it?
I have absolutely no idea. Advertising, it seems to me, continues to set the stage for a slower and slower death. I mean, one has only to think back on the huge popularity of the "Why don't you just give me rat poison" slogan. I mean, even I had forgotten how huge and long-running the old Wendy's Where's the beef campaign was, and then some of those other ones came along. Why Ask Why was pretty big, and Just Do It seemed big there for a while. But then, Why Don't You Just Give Me Rat Poison came along and hit even bigger than these. And the phrase, I think, resonated with the culture at large. I mean, it was everywhere. It was in the air. Old people, little kids, teenagers, everyone just joined together in a chorus-wide medley of, why don't you just give me rat poison? This is the sound of pending doom, Mr. Ballard, patent fear, psychic paralysis, and this hasn't died down completely by any stretch of the Johnson administration. No, sir. This is the kind of thing that's just starting to get revved up now. It's just forever getting
That's weird. That's
revved
weird.
up to
hey,
get...
listen, we're about out of time, but before we go, I'd like to, if I could, read this passage I brought with me today. Came across this the other day in the course of preparing for today's show, and everything really synced right up. You know, as some things sometimes do, as things often do here on the old Ballard and Ballard show, and so I'd like to read it here as a parting thought, if that's all right with you, Dr. Ballard.
Hey, sure, be my guest.
Here goes. All that he does seems to him, it's true, extraordinarily new, but also, because of the incredible spate of new things, extraordinarily amateurish, indeed, scarcely tolerable, incapable of becoming history, breaking short the chain of generations, cutting off, for the first time, at its most profound source, the music of the world, which before him could at least be divined. Sometimes, in his arrogance, he has more anxiety for the world than for himself. That's Kafka from his aphorisms.
Whoa. Enough said. Hey, what do you say we wrap it up?
Do you have any parting thoughts, Doctor, for the folks at home?
Sure, maybe a quote of the day. Let's see. How about this? To decide not to decide is not decision. To decide not to not decide is. That is decision.
Then. All right, then. Hey, thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Mr. B. It's almost always a pleasure.
And thank you for being with us.